Hello everyone, welcome back. I hope you all had a nice weekend. I am joined today by Emily Beam from the UVM Economics Department and Hugo Beam, baby. And they are going to help me to talk about a few things today. So the first thing we're doing today is thinking about paraphrasing. And you did some paraphrasing last week, and you're going to do some more practice today. So my first question is, why do we paraphrase instead of just putting in quotes from papers? What do you think?
And not just because you told them to.
Not just because I'm telling you not to.
Which is a good reason as well. But,
It's true.
like
But why would you not do that?
I wouldn't do that because it's awkward if you just throw a bunch of quotes in. Mm-hmm. If I was reading someone's research paper, or if I was writing a research paper, I want to say what... I want to put together all the pieces, right? I've done all the work of finding these different sources, and it shows that I've done the work of actually reading and understanding it. If I say, like, this author found this, or this author says this, that makes it clear that it's in my own words, that I understand it. Mm-hmm. And then also for the reader of my paper, it becomes a lot more tractable, that everything is in the same tone, the same way of writing, same style. It's a lot more concise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
And it doesn't hurt to look at when you have like all these choppy quotes.
Yeah, it doesn't read well.
It doesn't feel good.
No. So experts suggest, by which I mean the authors of the textbook that you read earlier, that you quote no more than 10%. Your paper should be no more than 10% quotes. So keep that in mind. Don't overquote. One analogy that I use is thinking of it as a playlist versus a remix. You want to make a remix. You don't want to be the DJ who's just like, new song, new song, new song.
Bless you.
I want you to remix and actually synthesize and provide your own understanding. All right?
All right.
Let's do that. Okay. Second thing. You are going to be learning more about APA citation in the next week or so. So I want to know why it is that we bother to cite.
Because we don't steal.
Because we don't steal.
We don't steal. We just don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, if you don't cite someone, there's two interpretations, right? Either it's your unique idea that you came up with, or it's someone else's idea that you stole, right? And if you don't cite, we just assume it's the first one because we're nice people. We assume that you came up with that idea. And if you didn't, that's not correct. It's not accurate. And it's literally taking someone else's ideas and stealing them. So we don't do that.
So what would you say, what does citation do for the reader, the original author, and the author who's writing this new research?
Okay, so if I'm a reader and I read something that has citations in it,
mm-hmm.
that helps me assess how seriously I should take the arguments, right? So if it's something where I don't see any citations, I assume that it's the opinions of that person, right? Or the research or the results from that person, which is fine, which is great. But if they're discussing the status of a field and they have 10 different citations, then I understand that they're part of a bigger conversation, and I'm able to actually understand and learn from that conversation more generally. Mm-hmm. It tells me that I should give it more weight.
And you can also go find those articles.
And I can find it.
So if it's cited, you've seen this in your own research, sometimes it's even hyperlinked for you, and then you can go find that article.
It makes my life a lot easier.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing for me. As the reader, as the person who did it, if I come up with an idea or a result or a study, I want people to know that I did it. I want credit for it because that's how I have an impact in my field.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe so I get paid, kind of, like in a way, like in an indirect way. Not speaking for myself specifically.
But you spend a lot of time on it, and you should get credit for it.
Yeah, and when we say a lot of time, I don't mean like 3 months. I mean like 10 years. So like you worked on this for 10 years, like you should get credit for that. That's important.
Mm-hmm. And then for the writer of the research paper, as you said, it adds a sense that you've really understood this field.
Yeah, that you've understood this field and that you're able to think about how you're contributing and in which ways. And it also enables you to sort out what is the part that you're adding where there's nothing for you to cite because it's your unique new contribution versus what you're taking from existing work and drawing from. Mm-hmm. And you're able to make that distinction very clear, which I think is also good for just thinking through your ideas as well.
Yeah.
Also, don't steal.
Don't steal. Which brings us to our activity today.
Yay.
So we're doing an activity. We usually do this in class, but we're going to do it with just us three. So this is the plagiarism activity.
This is a
So
less engaged student.
yeah, he's not very engaged. So as we said, don't steal. Plagiarism. It's a really bad idea. It's one of the few things that a tenured professor can get fired for. Basically, committing and being convicted of a major crime. Your university gets shut down, or you plagiarize. That's really it. So it's like in that level of seriousness.
Yeah, don't do it.
So it's really bad. Don't plagiarize. But I also know a lot of students are anxious about accidentally plagiarizing. And so that's where we're sort of going to head today. So I'm going to take this baby,
and I'm going to do the writing.
and you're going to do some writing. All right. Oh, give me this baby. Look at this baby, guys. He's so big. Okay. So
I hold the camera.
you get that over there. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to read you some examples. First, I'd like you to make a spectrum. And on the left side, I'd like you to write sloppy, needs more practice.
Spectrum.
Yep.
And this is going to be sloppy. So this is stuff that you've done that like was a bad life choice, but there's not.
You didn't really mean to. You didn't understand. You need more practice with citation.
And your consequences, basically, like your grade goes down.
Yeah, and your professor gives you a reminder.
Yeah.
Okay, on the right we have deep shit, intentional plagiarism. Okay, so the y-axis means nothing, but I'm going to give you some examples, and I want you to place them on the spectrum of how bad you think they are.
Okay.
And I'd like you also to say what it is the student might have done differently.
Okay. I'm ready.
Okay, starting off with George had a lot of midterms and forgot about his paper until the night before. He went to a paper buying site and purchased an essay which he turned in as his own.
I feel like George has made a really bad life choice.
Yeah.
Like that's just straight up.
That's really bad.
That's really bad. That's
Yeah.
Someone else wrote something. He took credit for it.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I'm going to call that deep shit. So I'm going to put George here. That's my guess. I think there's probably worse, but I think you have to like fabricate some data.
Okay. Kim's older sister is brilliant, and she goes to another college. So Kim turned in one of her sister's essays as her own.
I feel like George and Kim are kind of on the same page.
Yeah, George and Kim are...
the only difference between George and Kim is exchange of money. But, you know, Kim has also betrayed her sister's trust. And, like, what there is worse, I don't know. So, we'll give them eyes, too, so they can be shamed. I put them over there.
Okay. Kurt did a lot of good research, but he's not a big fan of writing. So he got one of the guys in his dorm to write the paper for him.
Again, I feel like Kurt's on the same page. They're all going to hang out with the Academic Integrity Office. That's his cool ponytail.
Okay. Pablo took extensive notes, but he wasn't always careful to note whether something was his paraphrase or a direct quote. Later, when he went to write his paper, he ended up putting in verbatim sentences from his sources without quotation marks.
Oh, I feel like that's better. So, like, he didn't mean to, but he was sloppy, and he needs practice. But it is clear-cut plagiarism. Like, there's definitely are direct quotes that are being passed as his own, which is, like, as someone reading it, would be very confusing to me. And as someone who, if I'd written those and I found them in someone else's paper, I'd be super mad. So I'm going to put him kind of over here. I feel like maybe he gets, like, a... But it's a reminder. Like, that's where I put him. Is that a good place?
Yeah, I think so.
Pablo. Okay, he's over there now.
Okay. Carl inserted huge chunks of his sources right into his paper and didn't provide any citations.
Well, it wasn't the whole paper, but it wasn't good. Is that Carl with a C?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Okay. Octavia knows a lot about dolphins because her parents are marine biologists. She includes a lot of information that's in her head, but that most people don't know. But she doesn't bother to find a source for this information.
Ooh.
It's not common knowledge.
It's not common knowledge. No, it's her specialized dolphin knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sloppy.
What should she do instead?
Oh, well, what she should do is she should try to find the sources, right? So she, like, knows a cool dolphin fact. That she knows.
She overheard at dinner.
That she overheard at dinner. She should look up that dolphin fact. Figure out kind of who found that out. Like, what source could she draw from?
Mm-hmm. And a student in our in this class might know something from another course, but they don't really remember where it was from. And so they need to go and find that because it's not actually common knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And again, there's a distinction there, right? Like the existence of dolphins, you don't have to go cite, right? You don't have to go find the first person who named a dolphin and cite that. But if you get into, dolphin breeding patterns and their changes over the past 15 years, like that's a really specific thing that's been well researched or documented somewhere. And most people aren't familiar with. So I guess I don't know how to weigh her against Pablo.
Yeah, somewhere in the middle.
But I put her kind of, like over here-ish.
Sure.
Yeah. What's her name?
Octavia.
Octavia. She also write great sci-fi?
She does.
I knew it.
Okay, Priyanka copied and pasted stuff she found online without citations, and then went through and changed a few words in each sentence.
Oh, that's sloppy ass. That's not good. That's I don't remember Pablo anymore, but she's definitely over here. Okay. She's trying to paraphrase. Like she knows
but there's no citations. There's no citations. So she needs to remember that if you paraphrase something, you still need a citation.
She's done double bads.
Yeah, so she did poor paraphrases. And there were no citations for her paraphrases.
So I feel like she's kind of over here then.
Yeah.
Yeah, Priyanka. That's a good point.
Okay, I've got a variation on Octavia. So Nico knows a lot about art history that he's learned in various places over the years. But it's not common knowledge. Rather than find a source for the facts he's put in his paper, Nico just makes up a fake source and lists that.
I don't think he's plagiarized worse. I just think he's behaved worse. Like, that's not more plagiarism. That's just more dishonesty.
That is also considered to be plagiarism. Yes.
I'm going to pop him over here.
Yep. Nico knows better than that.
Nico, for shame. I'm going to give you a really weird haircut. Aggressive bangs. And no eyes. You know why.
All right. Heather found a source.
Okay, Heather.
Heather found a source that almost said what she wanted to say in her paper. So she went ahead and wrote it as though the source agreed with her perspective, even though that's not what the author actually meant.
Oh, guys, come on. No, Heather. That's not a good choice.
So I want to highlight that instead of finding a source that does agree with Heather, what Heather should do is actually look at the research and find out what the research says.
Yeah. It's better to start with looking at the research and then writing your paper instead of writing your paper and then finding the research. Yeah. Like, you've got to be really confident if you're going to do the second one and do it honestly. So, again, I don't...
Somewhere in the middle.
Heather's lying. I'm going to put her near Nico. Also with a weird haircut. I'm giving her aggressive pigtails.
Okay. Eric cited several sources correctly, but also copied and pasted in some uncited sentences alongside the correctly cited ones. Then
he's done the same thing as everybody else. He's making... I don't care that he's done like 50% of it and then 50%. He's still... I don't remember who did this, but he's not
as bad as dolphins, I don't think.
Definitely not as bad as dolphins. Because he gave it a go, but... Yeah,
he needs to make sure that every single sentence is correctly cited and either quoted or paraphrased.
Yeah, I kind of feel like having half of them cited doesn't really undo it. No. Like, you shouldn't have any that aren't cited because you don't want to accidentally steal people's stuff.
Okay, Chantel's citations contain mistakes like the wrong author, year, or page numbers.
That's just sloppy. But I feel like that happens to the best of us. I feel like I'm gonna put Chantel over here. When I read papers, one of my favorite things is to try to trace when somebody misspelled an author's name, and then they got lazy and they just keep it gets perpetuated. It's a really sad hobby.
Okay, Hiroshi did good paraphrases of his sources' sentences, and he even gave the authors' names correctly. But he forgot to provide page numbers for some of his paraphrases.
Yeah. That's fine. Do you guys put page numbers in your stuff?
Well, we do for paraphrases. If you're paraphrasing or if you're doing a quotation, then you must put a page number. Whereas, if it is a summary of the paper as a whole, you do not have to put a page number. Fun fact.
Fun distinction. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that's just sloppy.
It's sloppy. So Hiroshi goes somewhere on the left.
Yeah, he's kind of over hanging out by Chantal. Like, there's nothing shady. There's no shady business here. Just
needs more practice.
Yeah, it needs more practice, and, to the extent it gets noticed, not great for his grade/society.
Okay. Josefina gave citations for her paraphrases, but used the same structure as the original sentences.
So that's the same as like changing a few words,
Yeah.
but with citations.
Yeah, she used citations, but her paraphrases were bad. They were the same structure as the original sentences.
So there, I mean, again, she's kind of in this middle area, right?
She needs more practice with her paraphrases. She needs more practice
because, like, again, there it's not an issue of intent; it's just an issue of ability, right? Like, and this is where it can be really helpful to, when you take your notes, write down the notes as paraphrases to begin with, because that way, and then when you write again, then paraphrase that, so you never end up recreating the initial
sort of
sentence.
like the telephone game. You want to be like 5 kids along.
Yeah, or like 3, like but not 1, because you'll hear too much the same. And like also when you're reading people's work, sometimes the way they write it sounds really good, and it's like because they wrote it 20 times. So that's why it sounds so great. And so if you aren't looking at that when you're writing a paper, it's easier to let it truly have your own voice.
All right, last one. Amir copied and pasted several sentences and gave citations, but he didn't use quotation marks around the verbatim text.
So is it clear that he
gave citations?
Okay.
But it looks like he paraphrased when in fact they're actually...
Oh, no, that's bad news bears.
So,
in the middle. Okay. Yeah, I thought it was like he used italics instead of quotations, which
he forgot to put quotations. So he's giving credit for the ideas, but he's not giving credit for the actual writing.
Okay. Well, and again, is that I feel like that's an ability thing.
This is just sloppy.
I'm gonna put him over with Josefina.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sloppy. It's like worse than Hiroshi though. Because he just forgot page numbers, and that happens to all of us sometimes. We're sleepy. Okay. Did we get them all?
I think we got them all.
Yeah, you okay?
You did great. Okay, so what I want you all to sort of take away from here is the stuff on the left. Well, let's say the stuff on the right, don't do that. You know not to do that. That's bad.
Shame.
That's not good. You know, like, it's really obvious that it's intentional, and it is dishonest, and you're not going to do those things. The stuff on the right, that's the stuff where we're going to be working on that over the next couple of weeks, and I don't want you to freak out too much about those sorts of mistakes. If you make those mistakes, I'm going to circle those mistakes, and we're going to talk about them. But this is a class that is about learning how not to plagiarize as one of its goals, so we're going to learn how not to plagiarize. But don't do dishonest stuff. Yes. Okay.
No.
Also no.
Don't do any of it, but it happens.
Okay, so, can I hand you back this baby? I can't concentrate with this baby.
How can anyone concentrate with this
baby?
Look at him, he's so engaged.
He's very engaged.
Sorry, I'll put him back.
Okay, so you are, starting for Wednesday, you're getting started writing your first draft of your research paper, your lit review.
Paper, yeah.
So, one of the models that I gave you to read was emotional eating. And I want to highlight some things that she does really well in there that you should also think about doing well. So, first thing is, because she's only actually taking us through 4 or 5 different studies, she doesn't just say, like, this study found X. She gives us what is the methods. How did they actually go about finding this? And that helps us to understand, how they came to this finding, and also sort of lends more credibility. If somebody just says, like, they found this, I don't know what are the circumstances around that. She also critiques some of those studies. So it's important for her to have told us about the methods so that then she can go back and say, but the sample size was really small. So we need to think about whether it's actually generalizable. So that helps if you've actually given us some background about the study. She is good at synthesizing instead of just summarizing. For your papers, one tip I have is not to say study number 1 said this, study number 2 said this, study number 3 said this, but instead to say, like, here's a theme that came up in several different studies. Here's how it showed up here, but this author disagrees, and kind of take us through it by theme rather than by study. And you can use your storyboard for that. A lot of you in your outlines are already doing that. Your outlines are really thorough, and I thought you did a good job with those. So hopefully there's not too much work to be done here. She does a good job of maintaining her own voice. She does this by using a lot more paraphrasing and explaining than quoting, so it all comes through consistently as her voice. She is also selective about her sources, so she doesn't include every single article that so much as mentions a theme. She chooses the ones where it's most salient in that article. So choose the best ones, not little tiny mentions of something. I would say she could do a better job of introducing her sources. Sometimes she just kind of drops a source in, and we don't know anything about the background of those people. Because a lot of you have topics that draw from a number of different fields, it might be useful to say, chemist so-and-so says this, or, biologist so-and-so says this. You can even, if you want to, give a little bit more, say, Harvard biologists says such. You give us something about them that lets us know who they are.
My uncle.
No.
No.
Unless your uncle is a Harvard biologist.
He's not.
Okay. Your uncle's a car salesman. Has he written a paper?
No. But he sold many cars.
Yes. Okay, this has been a long video. So,
you guys are champs.
You guys are champs if you've gotten this far. I have some announcements. So you should check Blackboard for the reading and the homework. You should sign up for consultation if you haven't done that yet. I also have office hours today and Wednesday, so you can sign up for those. If you haven't found your partner yet, please let me know. A few of you have emailed me, but please do reach out as soon as you can if you have not found your partner. And finally, your shitty first draft is due Wednesday. So a couple of notes about that. It must be at least 2 pages long. You do not need to do APA-style citations for this draft. Make sure that you know where each of the information comes from. You can color code if you want. You can invent your own little system. Just make sure that you're keeping track. But don't worry too much about the mechanics of APA right now. You are also welcome to just put bullet points for your introduction and conclusion. I don't need you to actually write those at the moment. It'll be easier to do that later on. However, the rest of the paper should not have bullet points. It should not be an outline. It should clearly be a paper. This is the point where I would ask you if you had questions. If you have questions, you should email me.
I have no questions, and he doesn't speak language, so
great.
This is going to wrap up quick.
It's been a long video, so it should wrap up now. We're wrapping up now. Okay. Remember to turn in your drafts on Wednesday. I have them on Blackboard as listed as still being due by the beginning of class because I want you to be able to work with your partner during the day, but I'm also realistically accepting them throughout the day. So as long as you get it in by the end of the day, Wednesday, midnight, end of the day, then it will count, but do try to get it in the morning so that you can work on the partner work during the day. Okay, I hope you all are keeping well, and I will talk to you again on Wednesday.